Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from podweather.com and Internet Partnership Radio with the latest on the tropics, and we do have the first tropical depression of the 2010 Atlantic hurricane season sitting right there in the Western Caribbean, and you can see its convection, the gray convection here popping up, an indication this will likely become Tropical Storm Alex either later tonight or early in the morning tomorrow, and the general thinking is that this very well-defined tropical system is going to be strengthening and heading towards the Yucatan, and we already have tropical storm warnings out for portions Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula. After that, it's a little bit more uncertain, but into the Gulf of Mexico for another round of more serious strengthening and a threat somewhere from Mexico on over to the North Gulf Coast. You can also see on that loop we have Major Hurricane Darby here, which looked more impressive at the beginning of this loop, but has since lost a little bit of that well-defined eye it had. And we have an invest out here trying to get going, and it may end up developing a bit and head towards Bermuda. So a lot to talk about, but obviously this sprawling feature right here is the system we're going to be talking about the most at this time. Now the latest on Tropical Depression 1 as of 8 p.m. Eastern, it was at 16.6 north, 83.7 west. Winds were 35 miles an hour, gusting to 45. It's nearly a tropical storm, quite possibly one right now, and it will definitely be one within the next coming hours. It's moving west-northwest at 10, so it's not too fast but not too slow, and it is westerly, but it does have that northwest component, and all that's very important when it's so close to land to see about strengthening, 1,004 millibars. And again, it is forecast to become a tropical storm, strengthen up to about 50 miles an hour, make landfall sometime about 24-36 hours, weaken back down to a depression, and then start to move more northwest and slow down. And I'll tell you why this track is in just a second, but clearly towards the end, by Wednesday afternoon, still sitting here in the northwest Gulf and strengthening. And you can see through time the cone is very short at first. It's not a lot of leeway as to where it's going to go, but as you get out 4 or 5 days, it could be anywhere from Tampico, Mexico, all the way back to southeastern Louisiana. But anybody along the Gulf Coast needs to keep an eye on this one because it looks like it is going to be a player, potentially even as a hurricane, although right now that is not in the forecast and we're going to have to wait and see on that. Now here's the latest infrared satellite imagery as we get the nighttime starting to fall in the Caribbean right at the end there. This big blow-up of convection. Note the dark grays and reds here. This can cause a lot of heavy rain, and there is the potential for damaging mudslides and deadly mudslides as the system continues to move on off towards the west-northwest, and definitely some banding features trying to get going here. And the latest microwave imagery also showed an inner core trying to develop, and if that happens, watch out, it could be a lot stronger than it currently is as it continues that movement. Here's another look at the system, and you can clearly see over the last several hours it's gotten a lot better defined with the banding features, and I'll show you in just a second why that is because of the upper level winds. Very mature looking circulation, at least on the banding features, and then right here is where the center is moving west-northwest. A lot of heavy rainfall with this system. No doubt you can see that movement continuing as this is nearing tropical storm status as we speak. Now, as far as the movement's concerned, again, the models are in generally good agreement that it's going to be west-northwest into landfall pretty soon in the Yucatan, pretty soon meaning 24-36 hours, and then northwest. Most of the models do agree it's going to turn northwest, but they start to diverge. There's a good cluster of models that wants to pull it right into the North Gulf Coast, the area hit so badly the last several years between Pensacola and Morgan City, while another group of models wants to take it more towards Mexico and southern Texas. Now, either way, the problem is the waters are very warm, and based on what the models show, it will have a pretty good environment. So, remember Brett in '99 was a tropical depression that formed way down here in the Bay of Campeche. It just kind of sat around for a while, and in this small area, it was able to become a strong Category 4 hurricane. So whenever we have systems that might be milling around out there for several days, but not upwelling themselves, you always want to be on the lookout just in case something happens. And again, it's uncertain what will. But again, anywhere from Veracruz all the way back to Apalachicola, you guys need to be on the alert as this system continues to develop and we'll learn more about it. Here's the NAM model showing the system Tuesday in 84 hours heading on up towards the northwestern Gulf Coast, and that looks rather consistent with the hurricane center. The GFDL takes it as a tropical storm into the panhandle, very broad, ragged tropical storm, but with some gusty winds. The HWRF model takes it as a strong tropical storm, 971 millibars. That'd be more like a Category 2 hurricane, but it only shows 65-mile-an-hour winds. But nevertheless, it takes it as a pretty tight system into northern Mexico. This would be well south of the Texas border, and it doesn't even show tropical storm force winds affecting you there. And the Canadian model takes it, a strong system, into northern Mexico as well, although this time closer to the Texas border. Now, as far as strengthening is concerned, you can see there's a beautiful upper level anticyclone right over the top of the depression, which should basically carry along with it at least until the Yucatan, meaning that once it gets an inner core developed, there should be nothing to stop this from becoming as strong as it wants to become. And after that, it's going to generally move over the Yucatan, and then once in the Gulf, indications are conditions will probably be pretty good there too. So waters aren't a problem. Wind shear, at least right now, is absolutely not a problem. If anything, it's beyond favorable with this anticyclone. So it's all a matter of if that inner core gets going, which, as I showed you on those IR loops, there is some bursting going on right over the center, and it's foreboding for what may happen overnight. We'll wait and see on that. Now, we also have another invest out there. This is 94L. This is forecast to continue northwest, then north, then northeast, but come close to Bermuda. If it does develop, some of the models take it up to a strong tropical storm. If the one in the Gulf develops first, that'd be Alex. This would be Bonnie. Those are our first two names of the season. And again, right now, it's not really looking all that good. If we look at the latest satellite imagery of 94L, you can see it does look like it's trying to get a little spin right in here, but is having a little bit of trouble with this wind shear, which is in part due to the high pressure blowing off our system in the Caribbean. So one system can hurt the other. But this is a wave, and it is looking a little bit interesting as it moves northwest. Bermuda, keep an eye out. Even if it doesn't develop, that does not mean it won't bring you any nasty weather. Now, we do have a hurricane, a major hurricane in the Pacific, Darby, as of 5 p.m., 13.6 north, 101.5 west, 120-mile-an-hour winds gusting to 150. A very strong hurricane, moving west-northwest at 5, and it's expected to slowly meander, weaken, and then kind of roll back to the coast. But as our storm moves into the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to have such an outflow pattern, probably with a favorable environment, that it could actually help tear Darby apart. But it's too early to tell if that's going to happen. Latest water vapor loop of the hurricane, clearly you can see the eyes was very well defined earlier as it tried to become a Category 4, but it's gotten more ragged, so it's probably peaked out in intensity. A tiny little hurricane, and just a little too close to comfort for Mexico, but again, you guys shouldn't get anything except heavy surf. At least it doesn't look like you will. Now, another story is Hurricane Celia. When I spoke to you yesterday, it was 135 miles an hour, and it still is. Ignore this map once again. The wind values are incorrect when storms are at 100 miles an hour and 115 knots. Sometimes it shows about 5 miles an hour off. It's actually still 135. It's at 14.2 north, 119.0 west, winds 135. Had been up to a Category 5 hurricane yesterday. Only the second time in June the East Pac has ever had a Category 5. Last time was Ava in 73. It's moving west-northwest at 11, 948 millibars, a far cry from the 926 at least that it was yesterday. Celia should continue to move out and weaken, but again, a very, very impressive hurricane. Taking a look at the satellite imagery, just a beautiful hurricane. Reminds me a little bit of Floyd from 99, another 1999 hurricane, as it was nearing the Bahamas. Very large, very symmetric, with a very large eye. And even though this is weakened, if this were hitting land right now, the damage would be Andrew-esque, to say the least. This would be a very devastating hurricane. But thankfully, it's moving on out, and we're not going to have to deal with Celia anymore. Just what is in the Atlantic Basin. That's going to be about it. And that's our system right here, sitting in the Caribbean Sea, blowing up As this continues to organize, get that outflow going, get the inner core building, become a tropical storm, hit the Yucatan, leave from there, northern Mexico to the North Gulf Coast. If it stalls out, if it becomes a hurricane or a strong hurricane, that's all unknown at this point, but we're going to carefully monitor the progress of this system.